Call this meeting of the Amador County Board of Supervisors to order on this January 10th, 2023. The record show it's my mother, Rosemary Forster's birthday, who's passed away, but happy birthday, Mom. And the board has met in closed session. Item 1, conference with labor negotiators, gave direction to staff. Item 2, conference with county council, anticipated litigation. The board denied the claim of Carl Gamble, claim number 22-12, and the confidential minutes the board approved. All those items were approved 3-0-2, and let the record show that Supervisor Crew is on jury duty right now. Hopefully he'll join us at some point, but we'll see. And with that, can you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under justice for all. Thank you. We'll go to public matters not on the agenda. Discussion items only, no action to be taken. Any person may address the board at this time upon any subject within the jurisdiction of the Amador County Board of Supervisors. However, any matter that requires action may be referred to staff and our committee for report and recommendation for possible action at a subsequent board meeting. Is there any public comment at this time? Yes, sir. Come on up. Please sign in and state your name for the record. Good morning. Could pull the mic down so we can hear you, please. Thank you.
Hello.
Morning.
Is that better?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Lance Kell, and I've been up in the area here approximately 6 to 7 years. I had a house that I sold, and upon retiring, I sold that to basically pay all my bills. I'm basically here about your RV rules and regs. I came up, I put in county permits to do a steel building. Within a month of my time being up here doing all this stuff, I got nailed by the county, the planning department, that I was illegal in my RV. But I already had plans for the steel building, so with the building committee and all them, we basically worked it out to let me stay in my RV for that time period, as long as I put in a basic plan to do a house eventually with, temporary plans, whatever. The building was put up, everything was done, and with the new rules and regs that they have now on fire insurance and everything else, I can't afford to build a house. So I decided to do a building apartment, so to speak, inside the steel building, which I came down and did the paperwork for that, paid the permits for that. Then the planning department, after the first of the year, hit me again, says, hey, you don't have any plans? And I said, well, I have plans in for the apartment in the building. Well, it was a music room kind of deal, not actually a livable with the kitchen and the whole thing as a real apartment. So since then, I've had to get a loan to come down and pay the fees to actually do it as a legit apartment, if that makes sense. My question is, how do you guys come up with some of these regulations when you have RV parks with RVs and say that I can't live in an RV on my own property? I'm paying taxes. Whenever I had the property initially, I was hooked up to sewer, power, water. I have everything there, all the facilities. I'm just trying to figure out, you guys might need to revamp some of these rules and regs that you have on people coming up. I'm trying to improve my property. But this 16 days a year, do you realize that's only 8 weekends out of 52 weekends a year that I'm allowed to stay in my trailer? This is a kind of little over dramatic in my opinion. So I'm here just appealing to you guys. You guys need to revamp and kind of think about some of these rules that you guys have. I understand it's a money issue on some of it. I'm retired. I'm a veteran, 40% disabled. I don't consider myself disabled, but I am. And I'm on a fixed income. That's basically all I kind of have to say. So you guys, one other deal I will say, is I went to pay the fees with my ATM card, MasterCard ATM. The balance $1,600 out of my checking account that I didn't have to borrow. You guys want $43 for me to use my ATM card here? I've checked with other counties. They don't have these fees. I don't know how you guys come up with some of these fees. So that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for your time.
Any other public comment from anyone in the room? Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Mitchell Vinciguerra. I'm a fourth-generation resident of Amador County. I was a millwright by trade and have been a member of the United Brotherhood of Carpenters for 10 years. My current job position is field representative. I started out at Ampine in Martell as a laborer. I worked my way to machine operator positions, various forklift jobs, and was eventually accepted into the maintenance apprenticeship program as a millwright. My training and education was 100% provided for, and I journeyed out of my apprenticeship in 2020. The Carpenters Union has provided my family an opportunity to purchase a home. It provides well enough that my wife does not need to work, and we can live comfortably on one income, and one day I'll be able to retire with dignity. I would like to see more apprenticeship opportunities available in our community, especially now that we have lost Ampine, which was a great employment opportunity in the region. Because of increased wages and lack of student debt, construction apprenticeship can be a better option for many young people over the traditional undergraduate program. Apprenticeships are a proven escalator to the middle class, training tens of thousands of California residents every year at no cost to taxpayers. Our apprenticeship program has 4 training centers located throughout Northern California. Our students take accredited instructional classes in a variety of different trades: carpentry, drywall and lathing, millwright, pile driving, hardwood floors, certified welding, and others. I hope you would agree that we should all strive to make sure we have responsible contractors in our area, contractors who pay area standard wages so the workers can afford to live in the communities that they build, contractors who have apprenticeship programs so the next generation of residents can climb the ladder of success while also creating a pool of skilled men and women in our area to work on future projects, contractors who provide their employees with health care benefits so our family, friends, and neighbors who work in the trades are not reliant on emergency rooms, taxing an already overburdened medical system in our community. We at the NorCal Carpenters would love to have a detailed conversation with each of you on how we can adopt labor standards in our county. Labor standards to provide a hand up to our youth in the form of apprenticeship and give them a bright future to look forward to. Labor standards that include health care benefits so the young and old can access medical, dental, and vision services without having to choose between seeing a doctor or putting food on their table. I'll provide my contact information with the clerk and follow up each of you with an email. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you.
Just a curious question. What exactly are you talking labor standards? What are you requesting of the county?
Have a conversation with us on how we can adopt labor standards in our county.
Like you're saying, who adopts labor standards?
Sorry?
Who do you want to adopt them?
The board.
For what type of projects?
So different counties have different things. You know, we could have a conversation about it. I know some counties have, if you're going to do private work over 5 million, 10 million, 2 million, whatever that conversation leads to, and however that works, that they would require contractors to provide health care or apprenticeships or area standard wages, you know, different things like that.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mitchell, I'd be interested in talking to you about the apprenticeship programs. You know, maybe that's something the community college could work with you on, you know, channeling young people into those programs. I'd like to see that happen if that's possible.
Absolutely. And we've already contacted the Amador County School District, and we're getting with their CTE program to see if there's anything we can help with, you know, there. And we'd definitely love to have a conversation with you.
Okay. My card might be on the back there, but you can look me up on the internet and just email me.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Morning.
Morning, gentlemen.
I'm also with the Carpenters Union, but just wanted to bring a little bit of awareness.
Sir, your name?
I'm sorry, I was about to mention it right now.
Okay.
I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of awareness of what the union can do for the veterans. My name is Demo Aguilar. I lived in Stockton for the past 5 years. My trade in the Carpenters Union is as a concrete form worker. I've been a UBC member for just over 5 years, and what I'd like to share with everybody here is my experience within the Carpenters Union as a military veteran. I have over 15 years of military experience with both the Navy as a gas turbine electrician engineer, and then in the Army as a commissioned transportation officer. My vast military experience includes multiple deployments, tours as a company commander, and many various trainings, multiple deployments, multiple schools. I mention this only because, despite of having all this background, I simply could not find a company that was willing to offer me a position that could possibly lead as a career and eventually retirement. I was willing to accept anything that could possibly be a career that will lead to a retirement. I even pushed shopping carts at Costco for a while. I was the only degree-having individual who commanded companies of upwards towards 150 men out there pushing shopping carts with kids half my age. But I was willing to do whatever it took to provide for my sons. Everywhere else, they would simply tell me that I was too overqualified, or that they were afraid that if they offered me a position that I would just leave given the opportunity for a better offer. It was only by chance that I heard about the bridge building going on in Fresno for the high-speed rail that I was set on the path towards an actual career within the Carpenters Union. The bridge building company said that I had to be union in order to work for their company, and that path might be long and hard. So I was quite deflated when I contacted the local 701 in Fresno and introduced myself. When I got to the part of my background of being a military veteran, I was stopped right then and there and I was told that I can get directly into the union under the helmets to hard hats program. I was told that that was the least that they could do for my service to my country. The helmets to hard hats program is here for our veterans to help with the transition that we have to face when we try to reincorporate ourselves into society. This process is one of the hardest things we as veterans have to face when we transfer out back into civilian life. Many of my military brothers and sisters do not make this transition. I had to go out and find my own job at a company who hired union workers, but I was now inspired to do so. And I found a position within a month and actually started working within the third month of being in the union. And they were really impressed by that. This was the first time outside of the military I was able to make a living wage and had the insurance to cover my son's medical needs. When I was only a third period apprentice, I was able to purchase my first home. As soon as I was able to complete my apprenticeship, the union was more than willing to utilize my education and training within the union as a field representative, which is why I'm here today. In closing, I would love to thank you all for giving me this opportunity to share my experience as a veteran in the Carpenters Union, and it's an honor to be able to spread the word of what the Carpenters Union can do for our veterans coming home and making that transition. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your service also.
Thank you.
All of you that have served. Any other public comment from anyone in the room? Virginia? Morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. Virginia Manor, representing as president the Jackson Creek Homeowners Association and also as an individual owner. I know that you received our updated document from our attorney yesterday. I'm not going to read the whole thing again. We did appear last night at the City of Jackson's meeting and got the proclamation from them. What I will say before I begin to call note to this is I was stunned by the stories of people on South Avenue. They were heartbreaking. And these are neighbors and friends, and these are people that, you know, are heartbroken. And the damage that was done didn't need to happen, and they asked for services. Same out on North Main, asked for services, and the services weren't there. I invited them to attend today. The meeting went late, but I just wanted to let you know there is damage all over the county, as I'm sure each and every one of you have seen in your own districts. I was at our attorney's yesterday, and the big oak next to her fell, and the one across the street from her fell, and that was yesterday. So I don't think we've realized the full damage that we're going to see out of this storm wave. But going back to the document, I'd like to call your attention to the last paragraph on the second page, starting with further, it is our understanding. Further, it's our understanding that the most of the 26-mile length of the Jackson Creek is under the county's jurisdiction, even though the banks adjacent to our property are in the city. We have requested the Jackson City Council to work with the county in designing a flood mitigation solution and applying to FEMA and other agencies for the necessary funds, including but not limited to the Disaster Assistance Act funds. The document, of course, was designed to outline many of the issues I brought to you last week. I'd like to know if you have any comment, and I know that you can't make anything but a comment or a question of me regarding this, and then I have one further comment. Does anyone have a question regarding the 26 miles?
I think it's something we're going to have to work with City of Jackson and figure out if there's anything we can do. Just like I own, all the cities have responsibility when they approve building to occur within floodplain areas.
Exactly. That's very true, but the City of Jackson is a very small government right now and overwhelmed. And there was discussion last night of perhaps their public use department trying to work with yours to gain funding. There was also discussion about the funding that you have within the county under the disaster plan, which I understand is long, it should have been redone years ago, and I think that falls on the Sheriff's Department. There were also concerns that no one received anything from OES or Code Red or any other agency of the impending floods, and many didn't have power and didn't have the ability to be on a computer or whatever to know what was really going to happen or what was happening to go to higher ground, some being disabled. So I found those comments interesting. I think the city will be coming to you. I talked to the mayor and said, or any of the other council members, to please try and make today's meeting to, bring ideas together, but they're probably trying to group them. The other thing, as a taxpayer and an owner, I'm speaking on my own. Because of the enormity of the damage and property loss, many of our homes have no value any longer. Without a retaining wall system, no one's going to buy there. We watched, same as South Avenue, everything erode. I would like for further discussion on a different time to talk about some sort of temporary adjustment in our property taxes to get us through this season until we are able to gain funding and begin to bring our property values up due to this storm. And that's one way that you can help homeowners and people that are so affected and now are facing full property values when there isn't any value at all. So I'd like you to consider that on another agenda, because I know you can't discuss it, make comments to any great degree, but I'd like you to consider that option as a relief to our county homeowners.
I mean, can't they apply to the assessor for a change? Yeah, you can do that right now.
We can do that at this point. I didn't know if it took a degree from you for an application, a special application.
No, you go to the county assessor. He's an elected official, so he's in charge of that. So we don't control every aspect of the county.
Well, I understand that, but it's part of the whole mitigation of flood and trying to help our neighbors and
Yes,
each one of us. So I will go up and see Mr. Rooney, but I wanted to make you aware that that's something that came up, in the last few days, so.
And you
I think this should be agendized in the future for discussion and clarification on a lot of these points.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. And you know how to notify me so I can be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment from anyone in the room? Anyone on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay, then, we'll move to
I've got
approval of the agenda.
Couple comments.
Supervisor Meadow?
Yeah, I think the property tax deal appears to be a reasonable request to have that looked at. Also, I think there's a bridge there out at South Avenue that in the city of Jackson hadn't been fixed. Should have been fixed. I think that would have helped. And I'll probably talk about it later on the George Reed request for an emergency about is talking about state rules and regulations hampering work. My guess, whether state or federal, it's probably the same situation out on South Avenue Bridge. And it's the same, we're having the same issue, trying to get our jail project going, trying to get through the state morass of regulations. An issue. Also, I think City of Ione, Stacy Rhodes, I think City of Jackson needs to talk to Stacy Rhodes and see how he got through the regulatory morass to get probably Corps of Engineers or Fish and Wildlife to get them a permit to clean out creek in Ione. I think that needs to be done, the creek in Jackson, because, I mean, it's got those cute little hummocks out there. I mean, they're wonderful to look at. They kind of look like little heads in the creek, sticking up little grass tussocks. Well, it all takes up creek channel, and when your creek channel is taken up, the water goes somewhere. So that's something I think City of Jackson should look at. I don't have a problem tentatively helping the homeowners if the county can, but I think ultimately it's a Jackson issue. Jackson has to carry that ball. Can the county probably help if we can? That's something the board decide, but I think we can look at that. I will say it was nice to see people out doing stuff during the storm. Up Cedar Creek Volcano Road, there's a guy named Kelly, helped us cut a tree off the road, and he was really good help. Did it on his own accord. We had Jeff Campbell went out, cleaned out a bridge where we were starting to flood across the road with his excavator. And then I went up and helped some people put some sandbags, and filling sandbags isn't much fun, but the people that were there, even though they're under duress, are all being pretty cordial and helpful, and it's kind of a good thing to see old school America. So that's all I got to say.
I was listening to a report on KVGC this morning, and I think our public works director, one of our staff, was being interviewed, and they said there's plenty of sand up there, plenty of bags, but bring your own shovel, because the county can't keep paying for shovels that get taken away with them, either advertently or inadvertently. So, okay, any other comments from board members? All right, we will move on then to approval of the agenda.
So moved with one consent item. That's going to be what, 5R, you said? 5R.
I'll second on the approval of the agenda, regular agenda.
All right. With the addition of consent agenda item 5R, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion carries 401. Approval of the consent agenda with the item as listed, ATCA item as 5R. Moved by Supervisor Axe.
Yes.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Brown. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion carries 401. Go to our regular agenda. Item 4A, discussion of possible action relative to election of the 2023 chairman and vice chairman for the Amador County Board of Supervisors. Do I hear a motion from anyone?
The motion was for the,
Chair and vice chair for 2023.
I'll make a motion to approve the appointment of, Supervisor Brown to chair and Supervisor Aneta to vice chair.
And I'll second that.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 401. And if anyone, has questions on the rotation, it's been, kind of, mingled over the years, but, or mangled over the years, but, at this time, I think it goes, 2, 3, 5, 1, is it 1? 1, year after
4-1, I
Supervisor
think.
Crew, right?
Yeah, it goes 3, 5, 1, I think.
I started with myself, 2, 3, 5, 1, 4.
Yeah.
Is the rotation now.
Yeah.
So, and that's, happened because supervisors have declined the position in the past, or other things have happened, like a death of a supervisor with Supervisor Biaggi. So, with that, I think we need to switch seats.
Good.
And, Renee has...
Along what Chair Forrester was talking about too, and so what it is basically every district gets a turn at being chair. Kind of has a set routine, so you don't see a lot of. We don't have I guess you see in a lot of places jockeying for position and scurrying around this way here. Hey, every district has a opportunity to have their supervisor be a chair, which it's not the end of the world, but just makes it. Tries to keep it somewhat simple.
Okay, our next topic is passing the gavel and presentation. Passing the gavel to the incoming chair, Board of Supervisors, presentation of the plaque honoring outgoing chairman, Richard Forrester.
It's happened a few times, so thank you.
One thing I would like to thank ex-Chairman Forrester is all his guidance and everything he's done for me. He's going to be continuing that, but he's done an outstanding job for the county, and I truly appreciate everything he's done for helping me on CSAC and other committee assignments.
Well, and thank you for the job as the vice chair, because, thank you. It's,
Yeah, I think Richard's longest serving member of the board.
right now, so,
Yeah.
but, thank you as vice chair. It's, it helps to have a vice chair to keep you on track sometimes, especially when you don't get resolutions approved before you present them. All right, thank you.
Not a problem. Thank you. Okay, our next item is 4C, update of the Amador County Health Officer, Dr. Rita Kerr, on the COVID-19 situation in Amador County.
Good morning.
Oh, she's up in the Kirkwood, are you?
It's unfortunately just a stock photo. I'm not there. Good morning. It sounds like my video's coming through. Is the audio coming through okay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to ask the clerk to go ahead and ready the slide deck and go ahead and give the COVID and respiratory winter virus situation update to the board. Thank you, Chairman Brown and board members and community. Over the month of December, the trend for circulating winter viruses improved overall. Respiratory syncytial virus, or RSV, activity has lessened and influenza trended downward. COVID activity remains steady over the holidays. Hospital impact is shown here on this slide. This is, there are 6, excuse me, if you could go back to the hospital slide, thank you. 6 regions in the state, and Amador is within the greater Sacramento region, which is the middle slide of the upper row. And the blue is the flu and the red is COVID. So the trend that you'll see is that right after Thanksgiving is when we saw that flu kind of creep up, but fortunately it dropped a little and leveled out. It did not continue to increase. COVID has been increasing, although not super high, which is a good thing. And then occasionally, and you can't even see them on these graphs, it's too small, at least on my screen, If there's someone who's infected with both at the same time and is hospitalized, that would be in the green. But the good news is that we did not see a massive peak. This is data that goes through the 1st of January. Currently, there are 2 COVID positive patients hospitalized at Sutter Amador. Neither one is in ICU. And to date, we know about 428 Amador County residents who needed hospitalization because of COVID-19, which is an increase of 10 since last month. Now you can go ahead and switch to the epi curve, and just going over some of the local data here. This is since the beginning of the pandemic. This is COVID cases. The confirmed cases are the blue bars, and the probable cases are that light green bar on the top. And what we see here is that we're really pretty steady over the month of December, really since about the Thanksgiving holiday. The last week of data, which ends December 31st, we likely have some undercounting because we had closures of the test site because of the holidays on December 26th and January 2nd. And so we have fewer of the probable cases, which generally are done in that kind of supervised antigen testing setting. But the good news is we are not seeing dramatic increases in COVID burden compared to last year at this time. You can see that huge spike was when the Omicron variant first emerged following the holiday season last year. So currently we have 20 known active Amador County residents cases. Those are new cases reported to public health in the past 10 days. That is likely an undercount of the true community burden because of the test site closures, not seeing as many of those supervised probable antigen tests. And then we are just seeing much more home testing. And the home tests are not usually reported to public health, so that does tend to undercount case counts now relative to what we saw last year when home tests were not readily available. That shift happened really kind of midsummer this year, the move from supervised tests or tests being done at a medical clinic to most testing being done at the home by the individual at this point. Mule Creek State Prison has had 30 new inmate COVID cases in the past 14 days. You can move to the next graph, which shows the influenza hospital admissions. And this is at Kaiser Permanente, Northern California, which is one of the Sentinel providers that uploads all their data to the state because we are kind of within their catchment area. I think this is a pretty good reflection of what's happening in Amador County. And you can see that those hospitalization rates really peaked right after Thanksgiving, have fallen off, and now kind of leveled out. The next graph shows that RSV peaked and has fallen off. And the interesting thing to me about this graph is that the shape of the curve is so similar from year to year how RSV behaves as it moves through a community. And this is, again, Clinical Sentinel Laboratory statewide, but really all that happened this year is that RSV came a whole lot earlier than it usually does. It usually starts late winter and goes into early spring. And this time it started late summer and went into early fall. We hope we won't see another peak, kind of a biphasic season with this. Of course, it came at a time when influenza was peaking as well. They usually are kind of offset by a couple months, but since they peaked right around the same time, that really was a concern for hospital burden. Really glad to see this falling down. And then the next graph is what the RSV hospitalization looks like. Tracks pretty well if you superimpose this over the laboratory detections graph. I do see just in this most recent reporting week a mild uptick again in hospitalizations attributed to RSV. Hopefully that's not a trend. We say 2 points make a line, not a trend. We'll see what next week's data shows. RSV hospitalizations, you may recall me saying last time, are most often hitting the youngest children, and it can also affect very elderly individuals, but this is the one that hits the kids really hard because their airways are so narrow and they just don't have much reserve, so they end up with a lot of breathing trouble at times from this virus. Moving on to COVID-associated deaths. Since last month, no additional confirmed COVID deaths have occurred in Amador residents. There has been one suspect COVID death. A man in his 50s died at home. His autopsy showed pneumonia, and relatives told the deputy coroner who was investigating that he'd been sick with COVID, but we have no report of that lab result anywhere in our system. The total confirmed COVID deaths to date remains 87 Amador County residents and 9 Mule Creek State Prison inmates. 3 Amador residents have met the criteria for probable COVID deaths to date, and public health continues to offer our sincere condolences to all who have lost loved ones because of COVID-19. This graph shows that the vaccinations and boosters are working to protect against death. And as you can see here, this data goes through the end of October, and there is an 18.6 times lower risk of dying from COVID-19 if you've been vaccinated and had an updated bivalent booster, and 3.1 times lower risk of even testing positive in November compared to unvaccinated individuals. And that's all the slides that I have to show. So I guess if you want to see my face, we'll come back on screen. And remind you that the reformulated bivalent boosters better match the currently circulating strains of the novel coronavirus. Everyone is encouraged to stay up to date by getting a bivalent booster when they're eligible for it. And the timing for that is at least 2 months after your most recent dose of COVID vaccine. But if you've been recently infected, you may wait for 3 months. A COVID primary series of vaccine must be completed before getting an updated bivalent booster dose, and you may choose a different vaccine for boosters than you got for the primary series in that kind of mix and match strategy. When you come in for a booster, please bring your vaccination card, a photo of it, or a digital verification showing the dates and types of previous doses of vaccine that you've received. The COVID vaccine clinics for those ages 5 years and older continue to be held at the Health and Human Services Building Suite 500 on Tuesdays from 8:30 to 11:30 in the morning and Thursdays from 1 to 4 in the afternoon. Primary series and booster doses are available. Public Health has Pfizer, Moderna, and Novavax COVID vaccines in stock. And you may visit myturn.ca.gov or call 1-833-422-4255 to schedule an appointment. Those with appointments are prioritized at the vaccine clinics, but walk-ins are welcome. They must arrive a half hour before the clinic end time. It's not too late to get your seasonal flu vaccine either. Influenza viruses are still circulating. And Public Health is offering free flu shots during the Tuesday, Thursday vaccine clinics at Health and Human Services. Again, walk-in visits are welcome for flu shots. And you can get either flu vaccine or COVID vaccine or both at the same time. No high-dose flu vaccine for those ages 65 and older is available at the public health clinics, but you could check with your doctor or search the vaccines.gov vaccine finder tool for retail pharmacy availability of flu and what types of COVID vaccines the pharmacies have. Parents who are interested in having their young children, ages 6 months through 4 years, vaccinated for COVID should talk with their doctor or call Public Health at 209-223-6407 to schedule an appointment. A parent or guardian must accompany that child to the visit. COVID vaccines and boosters remain free of charge for everyone at this time, and boosters are important to maintain protection against severe COVID-19 and lower the risk of long COVID symptoms. The mobile vaccine team continues to provide vaccination for homebound individuals who may schedule a nurse home visit by calling Public Health at 209-223-6407. Masks continue to be required in healthcare settings, including at both the vaccination and testing clinics. And speaking of testing, next week will be the last week that we have the OptumServe testing and treatment site at the Health and Human Services Building, Suite 500. The site will be closed on Monday, the 16th, for the Martin Luther King holiday, open Wednesday and Friday from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., then permanently closed after January 20th. As more people are self-testing, demand has fallen at the community testing site. OptumServe is a resource provided by the state, and sites that have had low testing volume over the past few months are being decommissioned. We'd like to thank the OptumServe testing team that has served our community well as the California Department of Public Health Testing Task Force for approving and supporting the Amador County site over the past few years. No-cost antigen self-test kits are still available. 4 free kits per household address can be ordered at covidtests.gov that get delivered by U.S. Postal Service. Medicare and Medi-Cal allow pickup of free test kits at pharmacies, and private health insurance pays or reimburses for 8 at-home tests per month. Antigen self-test kits are also available at the Public Health Department, local agency partners, and schools are distributing test kits to students and staff. If you test positive, please follow self-isolation guidelines, inform your close contacts, and quickly seek medical advice to find out if antiviral treatment is recommended for you. Talk to your doctor, call the California COVID-19 hotline at 833-422-4255, or online, visit covid19.ca.gov /treatment to find free treatment options. California is now providing free phone or video telehealth appointments to get a prescription for COVID medication. And again, that can be accessed through that same hotline or at that same website address, covid19.ca.gov /treatment. Seek treatment while symptoms are still mild. Do not wait for illness to get worse. There is growing evidence that treatment reduces the risk of persistent long COVID symptoms. If you don't feel great, please isolate and get tested and treated to beat it. The same measures that work to lessen the spread of COVID also slow transmission of other respiratory viruses that commonly circulate in the winter months. Stay home when feeling unwell, cover sneezes and coughs, wash hands frequently, and boost your immunity by keeping current with vaccinations to prevent serious illness from COVID and influenza. You may also choose to wear a mask when indoors in public, especially in crowded places where there is not good ventilation. As population immunity to COVID has increased due to vaccination and prior infection, treatments are available that are effective in preventing severe illness, and hospital impact has become manageable. The state of emergency for COVID-19 will be ending at the state level at the end of February 2023. The measures contained in the California Smarter Plan will be continued to keep COVID in check. In coordination with the Amador County Office of Emergency Services and County Council, we will bring forward a resolution to concurrently rescind the local COVID-19 health emergency at the February 28, 2023 Board of Supervisors meeting. At this point, I'd be happy to address any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Kerr. Any supervisors? Ben? Dr.
Yes, I have one, Dr. Kerr.
Mm-hmm.
Looked at VAERS a while back, and it was pretty complex animal. Is there any way to separate out in the VAERS system the number of adverse reactions by county?
There is not at the county level. They do produce state level reports, but not at the county level.
Yeah, sometimes you could maybe, it'd be nice to have the list of them state reactions, the number, adverse.
I can certainly look for that information and bring it forward at a future time.
Thank you.
Just one quick question, Dr. Kerr. So they had RSV data back to 2017. I thought that was just kind of a new virus, so I must have been mistaken.
Oh, no, RSV's been around for many, many years, and it's always been captured on the state's respiratory. They do a seasonal respiratory dashboard, that gets updated weekly, and then do a, compile an entire season report at the end of every, season. So again, that respiratory illness season is generally started the first week of October, usually runs through about the end of April, sometimes into May. But no, RSV's been around. It's just, it hasn't reached our consciousness because it hasn't been so impactful at the same time as everything else.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. Dr. Kerr, I'm confused by the last paragraph where it says the state is ending the COVID emergency, then why would the county want to extend it?
We're not going to, we're going to end ours concurrently at the same time to rescind the COVID emergency at the end of February.
Okay,
here
to
locally.
concurrently rescind. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Okay, anybody from the public? Anybody on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kerr. Tell
You're welcome.
you and your staff thank you for everything they've been doing.
Thank you.
Okay, on to our next topic, 4D, General Services Administration, RFP 22-23, Contract Services for Title IV-E Specialized Training. This is possibly with Shabbat Los Posadas Community College.
Oh, Chobo.
Jobo, sorry.
Good morning, Ann Watts with the Department of Social Services. Our department would like to enter into a contract with the Las Positas Community College District to provide specialized training services using federal Title IV-E dollars. The purpose of the training program is to assist social services staff, resource families, foster family agencies, and other service providers to improve the quality of care that our county provides to children and youth who are in foster care. Utilization of this federal funding requires that the vendor we contract with be an accredited institution of higher learning. The community college will be required to design and conduct trainings that fulfill the requirements for Title IV-E federal funding and that best address the needs identified by social services. They will collaborate with us to coordinate training topics, schedules, locations, and other allowable activities, all aligned with current child welfare best practices. Other county departments such as juvenile probation and behavioral health can also benefit from these trainings. Present today on Zoom are two representatives from the Community College District, Julia Dozier and Megan McQuaid. Both are prepared to provide some additional information about their program as well as some information about the funding process, which is a little bit complicated. I think Julia's going to start, and they have just a brief PowerPoint presentation.
Sure. Good morning, and thank you, board, for meeting with us. Yes, we have a complicated name and a complicated process. Chabot Las Positas Community College District has been working with counties in Northern California for over 20 years now, and if this was sales, it would be considered a niche market for us. It's an exciting funding source that we are happy to share, and I'm going to ask Megan McQuaid, who is our Director of Child Welfare Training, to go into the details of our contract with you.
Great. Thank you so much, Julia. Thank you so much for having us today. So starting with just like a quick background of Title IV-E funds. So it's the same funding source at the federal level as foster kinship care education, as the MSW, BSW stipend program, regional training academy. So you might be familiar with other programs that use the same federal funding source. But what we do is a little bit different. Chabot Las Positas Community College District's model is based on a model that was actually based back in 2000 in Ventura County. And it's not administered through the state like those other contracts are. It's actually done on a county by county basis. And that way we're able to use your county proration rate, and we'll talk about what that is in a moment, and not the state rate. So it actually gives you more funds and a lot more flexibility because it's based on your county, not on the state model. So currently, as Julia mentioned, we have contracts in other counties. There's one in Alameda, Calaveras, Humboldt, Lake, Mendocino, Solano, and Tuolumne counties. were aware of, Monterey, Ventura, and San Francisco also having models, but they use a different community college to work through, not Chabot Las Pacitas Community College District. So basically, just wanted to emphasize that this is a complicated model, but it's not a new model. We've been doing this for decades. Other community colleges are also doing this with other counties, and there's a long track record that you can trust. And we're happy to answer any questions about it. We're going to try to simplify this as much as possible for y'all. So Title IV funds, and often any federal funding source, requires cost sharing. So the feds are not going to cover the full cost of anything. And so the way that they determine how much they are funding is that they reduced what they provide in two ways. And the first one is the federal financial participation rate. And so this is based on the type of eligible expenses. Either they'll provide 75% reimbursement or 50% reimbursement. The other way that they have cost sharing is that the funding source is intended to help children and youth that are removed from families that fall below a 1979 poverty rate. And so that's from a long time ago, just due to cost of living, it's much higher now. But the regulations require us to use that rate. So what they do is they create a proration rate for your county. And that's based on the number of federally eligible kids, based on that poverty rate from before, divided by the number of total kids in care. And that gives us a percentage. And we're calling that it's usually called the Fed rate, but to make sense, it's called the proration rate today. And that usually falls somewhere between 45% and 85%. So every county's rate usually falls somewhere in that range. We understand that Amador's county rate recently was 68%. So that's why it's better to work on a county basis for Amador County, because the state has to then average out all of those percentages. And so their proration rate is much smaller and they get back less from the federal government. Amador County, since you have a higher rate, you're able to actually access more funds through this type of model. What happens is that then, because of this cost sharing, you're not going to get back from the federal government your full amount of expenses, but the regulations say that a public entity of higher education like Chabot Las Pacitas Community College District can help make up the difference. And that difference is called the match. And so what happens, and we're going to go through this model in a moment, is that Chabot Las Pacitas Community College District will apply its own expenses to your claim so that you can get back 100% from the federal government of what the expenses are. And I'm going to go through how that math kind of works. We can do this for 100% of your expenses as long as your proration rate doesn't drop below about 65%. If it drops below 65%, then that gap is too big. But we think that right now, and your historical trend, you should be fine with us providing 100% of your match requirement. So we're going to go through an example in a moment, but this is kind of the big conceptual idea of how this works. So you'll see that there's the eligible direct training expenses. So these are all of the expenses to provide training to resource parents, to provide training to eligible staff, to send staff to conferences, to pay for their travel to those conferences, bring in experts about topics that you all want your staff trained on, or even to access virtual training. Because those carry high costs as well. So all of those expenses are wrapped up, and it's multiplied times your county proration rate, which again is about 68% right now. And because these are direct expenses, it's multiplied times a 75% federal financial participation rate. And that's the amount of funds you get back from the federal government directly from that kind of claim line. So what happens is that we want to make sure that you get back 100%. So we figure out how much match the college district needs to charge you. And we put that into your claim. That's multiplied also then times your county proration rate. That type of expense can only be reimbursed at 50% FFP, and that's also going to create federal funds that come back from the federal government for you, and that's what you get reimbursed. And so in the end, what happens is that the reimbursement to you from the federal government is the same as what those eligible direct training expenses were, so there's no out-of-pocket money coming from the county's general funds, that it comes through from the federal government. So I'm going to go through an example for you. Oh, also I want to explain, so the way that we have this match, the CLPCCD admin funds, is that when we have a contract with a county, we set aside a pool for each county. So Calaveras County has a pool of the district's administrative funds. Tuolumne has their pool. Amador County, you would have your own pool, and we pull from that pool as we need to apply it for each one of our claims, so that it's not duplicated. You're not sharing the same resource. It's yours. It's all non-federal unmatched dollars that we pull from and we apply to your claim. So here's the example. So if we have $500 worth of eligible training expenses that we're going to charge you for, we multiply that times 68% in this example for your county proration rate. We multiply that times 75% for the FFP, and that means the federal government will reimburse $255. So then we know that the college district has to then apply $720.59 of our expenses to the claim. That gets multiplied times 68%, which again only gets reimbursed by 50% because they're administrative costs, not direct claiming costs, direct training costs, and you'll get back $245. And so that then equals the $500, which equals the $500 that we're claiming. So the way that the funding kind of flows is that we'll create contracts with any foster family agencies that are doing training for resource parents, or with community-based organizations that you have that you want to fund that are working with foster youth for them to train their staff. We will pay for experts to come and train your staff. So we pay for all those expenses directly. Then on a quarterly basis, we wrap those up into a claim. Your county Title IV claiming process runs on a quarterly basis. Therefore, we follow that kind of funding cycle for you. So we'll wrap it up into a claim. Your proration rate also changes every quarter. So we apply the proration rate of that quarter. And then we send that claim to the county. You're going to use that information to then claim the state, who's going to claim the feds. There's other Title IV funds that your county draws down for direct services, for other admin services. So it gets combined with those other Title IV claiming procedures. So it's not an outside, it's not a new claiming that will have to happen. It just gets wrapped into existing procedures and existing claiming. So this is kind of what the claim and the information that we provide for you looks like. I know it looks really intimidating. And the thing to that I want to emphasize is the fact that we provide all the information that you need to do your claim. So, you know, your total cost that you're going to bill the state will be on here. The total amount of match that is required for you to ensure that you get back full reimbursement from the federal funding source is on here. And what the rate is that should be applied and everything is also provided. I know I'm over my time, so I won't go into too much detail about this, but I also want to be able to allow for any questions. We can also come back or, you know, talk to anyone offline to get into it. This is an amazing funding source that we've seen such great change happen in counties that we've worked with. A lot of, you know, working on supporting in decreasing turnover rates, increasing retention of staff because they feel supported, they feel competent, they have opportunities to work on their own vicarious trauma, being able to provide one-on-one training with resource parents so that they can keep the kids in their home and those kids are not going back into care or going into group settings. So it's an amazing funding source that I think is really flexible and can really come to benefit for Amador County. And so I encourage us to work together to make this all happen. And thank you.
Ann?
I don't have anything else unless you have any questions.
Supervisors?
Yeah, I have some questions. So, the training, what will that really consist of? I mean, how many people are going to be in there in the training? Just to get an idea. I mean.
And
Do you want to answer that? Explain some of it. That would be great, Megan. I know you've worked with some other counties. Maybe you can provide some examples.
Yeah, so the funding source allows for you to train anything from 1 person to 1,000 people that are eligible participants. And in California, they've been wonderful in being able to provide clarity of the federal regulations that really allow for anyone who works with foster youth, and all counties need to ensure that your probation department, your behavioral health, your public health, your education systems, everyone should be coming together to create a trauma-informed environment to support foster youth. So as long as we're training around supporting foster youth, the eligible audience is quite large. We cannot train birth families, which is the only unfortunate aspect of this. They have to be resource parents, but they can be grandmas, aunties, uncles, anyone else.
So we're looking at about
coaches.
20 to 30 people then that would be part of these classes?
So every class will be different. You'll want to have, there'll be opportunities to have training on an ongoing basis. In some counties, there's a series of trainings where, bi-monthly, there's trainings available for staff that they can come to. If you go onto our website, you'll see that actually across all of the counties that we're providing training with, at any moment during the 5-day work week, you can attend a training hosted by one of the agencies that we contract with. So the county will drive who you want the training to be with, how many people you want in the room, what the topics are that you want, but it can be as large as and significant as you are interested in doing. We can pay for venues so that, if you want to have 100 people come together, a lot of times bringing, their sheriff's office and to help collaborate with the social workers so that they know how to team together when they're working with families can be helpful. It can really be creative about how to use it. So there's not really a number that you can put to it. Trying to think, I think we worked with over 40,000 participants last fiscal year, but that was across counties.
If I can jump in, I was just looking.
Yeah.
I was just looking at Lake County's contract, which is actually quite small, less than $500,000 last year. They provided 1,322 hours of training to just under 1,900 participants. So if you're looking for actual numbers, that may help. And that's half to a third of this contract. And then we've got contracts up to 6 million with Alameda County that are obviously much bigger than that.
So that'd be like 1,000 hours of training for about $500,000 in. Is that correct? 1,300 was just for about 4. So I'd say about 1,500 hours. But again, as Megan says, that's how Lake County chose to use these funds. These funds can also be used to send people to conferences, to have one-on-one managerial supervisory training. It's difficult to pin down because it really depends on what Amador's needs are. We will be in a better place to address that once we get together and create a training plan for the county. Okay,
I'll add,
so going by, Lake County's model, then it works out to about roughly $350 an hour per hour of training then?
yeah, and I'd say for the Lake County example, one of the things that they did was they built a customized, on-demand training for onboarding their staff, their child welfare staff. And so it includes videography and production and the learning management system to host the training and monitor that. So there was a lot of funds that went into kind of the foundation of the training. And then as people are hired, they experience that training on an on-demand type model. So it doesn't fit like the classroom type picture of having the per hour type cost that you're calculating.
Sure.
But you could just, yeah. So that was one of their higher price items.
One more question, maybe for Ann possibly, or maybe one of you ladies. How many children and youth in foster care do we generally have in a year in Amador County?
We typically have around 50 to 70 children in care at any given time.
Okay. You know, so basically it's a training of the workers to work with children is really what's going on.
Yes, what drew me to this program was talking to some of the other counties who have a similar contract and the work that they've been doing to support their staff and to retain their staff and reduce turnover. And just like Megan was mentioning, that's what drew me to this contract, because we do have a high turnover rate. We have very high expectations that we've set for our staff. They have very large caseloads. We're understaffed. So this is one little piece that I'm hoping to put into place to find new creative ways to support them and to hold on to them a little bit longer. But like Julia was saying, our hope is to sit down with them and develop a plan for the upcoming year.
But as part of the briefing goes, is we're talking, you know, not just your staff, it's talking, you know, you said probation was one of the items. So it's assisting your staff through other staff of the county.
Right, we can help to serve any of our community partners who work with foster youth. So it could be any of the community-based organizations, probation, behavioral health, public health, foster family agencies, all can join us depending on the topics that we select that are of interest to them.
Supervisor Forrester?
You know, my only concern is that there's a not to exceed here. I like that. This may appear like free money, but at some point, free money is going to start running out. We have a $25 billion structural deficit in the state of California, and I want to be frugal with the resources that we have and manage them, which I'm sure you're going to do. So I just don't want to appear like this is a lot of money for a little county to get to manage this. $3.5 million over 3 years. I was astounded by the amount of money. So I really want to be prudent and fiscally conservative in managing our dollars that we get. And I know you'll put them where we need to, and I understand the staff turnover. But at the same time, it's just an astounding amount of money for a program like this.
It is a lot of money, and I know we'll put some careful tracking systems in place to make sure that we're able to continue to meet that match along with the community college district, and we can always modify the budget amount to ensure that we can do that.
If I may, on a couple of points, supervisors. One is the fact that these are federal funds make it a little less volatile. Frankly, the feds don't move very quickly. And so this funding source has been in place for a long time, and any changes we will have a fair amount of warning if it is to change. The other thing is that, as you know, this doesn't impact your general funds, but this is on a reimbursement basis only. So it's quite possible that the first year, as we ramp up, you won't spend down the full not to exceed amount. We're used to that. But again, we are being reimbursed for the trainings that actually take place. You're not paying for anything that isn't actually delivered.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any comments from the public? Any comments from Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay. Well, for the motion,
Yeah, I'll make a motion to, approve the recommendation, which is to award the RFP to, Chabot Las Positas Community College District for the 3-year contract in the amount of, not to exceed 1 million for the fiscal years of 22 and 23, and then not to exceed 1.5 million for fiscal year 24, 25, and authorize our Social Services Director, Anwa, and County Council to negotiate final terms and conditions and develop a contract based on the sample agreement. Authorize the board chair to execute the agreement with the community college district, that is Chabot Las Positas.
And I guess I'll second that. And under discussion, sometimes I wonder about it, seems just amusing on my part. No offense to anybody. It seems like we have more and more programs in our country, and it doesn't seem like it's solving the problem. We're throwing money at it. I don't think that's the answer. I think we need to look at where we're going culturally and what we're doing in the nuclear family. I think America needs to step back and see how we're conducting ourselves, and that might solve the problem. I don't think money and training will, but I understand you gotta have the training to implement the programs. That's why I'll second it. Just wanted to put that on the table.
Well, Richard already beat you to the second, so, we'll call.
Sorry, I didn't hear it.
Call for the vote. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those against? Okay, 4-0-1. Thank you, Ann. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item is 4E, discussion and possible action relative to the request for funding for First 5 Amador support for a health clinic being held in March.
Good morning.
Good morning. State your name, please.
Nina Machado. I'm the Executive Director with First 5 Amador, and I'm also a founding board member for Amador Stars. And I mention that because it's also an organization that provides resources to the county that are health-related. And I think that this next topic of discussion actually pertains to the overall health and well-being of the residents in Amador County. So first off, thank you so much for agendizing this. And it does say for requesting by First 5. However, this particular health clinic, and you were provided some background paperwork for it's California Care Force. This is for a clinic that we are hoping to offer to the community in March, toward the end of March. The services that are offered are medical, dental, as well as vision, which we know oftentimes are the particular health areas that aren't covered. Perhaps I'm familiar with Medicare, and a lot of Medicare plans don't cover vision and dental, so that's out of pocket for our seniors in the county. So beyond First 5, this is a 0 to 100, or if you're lucky enough, over 100 years old who could participate. What we're attempting to do, we do have to raise money on our side. The California Care Force brings in the resources that they have available. They've done many of these clinics. You might have seen some of the larger type of clinics in Sacramento, San Joaquin counties, Stanislaus. And so this is the first time Amador County has been offered this opportunity, but it's up to us to help provide some of the funding and or resources to make it happen. We have reserved the Amador County Fairgrounds. I, as a resident of Amador County and working as the First 5 Executive Director and with Amador Stars, we do our best to use the local resources so that our our businesses and such would benefit as much as possible as well. So we are renting the fairgrounds. We've reserved the space in multiple buildings, and we'll utilize that space. Participating in this is not just myself, but also Sutter has been participating in our meetings, ATCA, WellSpace, Amador Senior Services, Public Health, and several more. But I am somehow got the lead on this, so here I am. Supervisor Oneta, I really appreciated what you said earlier about giving examples of neighbors helping neighbors, and I think this is also an opportunity for us to do something in that arena. We are asking folks to volunteer, not just their talents, if you can help with parking cars, or some of our medical professionals will be providing services at that site as well. We will have probably professionals coming in from outside the county who like to do this traveling medical care, so they will be scheduling and signing up online through the California Care Forces site for all volunteers, whether they be lay, paraprofessionals or professionals doing that. You can look up in California Care Forces website, and you kind of get an idea of some of the things that they have done in the past. They give some examples. I pulled some up Butte County and Chico, Placer, Nevada County, just to get an idea of some of the smaller areas that have been served, not just the large counties. We want to make sure that these services would be utilized. So we asked Chris Colton of Amador Senior Services to do a survey of some of the folks who participate in the senior meal programs to say, what are your needs? When's the last time you've been to a dentist? When's the last time you have had your vision checked or had glasses? And what's the reason that you are unable to access those? And many times it was, they don't have insurance, they are living on Social Security, they have fixed incomes. And then we also see a population that might have insurance, but might have significant co-pays for some of these things. And we know right now with the cost, I paid so much money for 18 eggs the other day, I about fell over. It was $9.25 for 18 eggs. So the cost of living right now is just significant for families trying to pay for gas and diapers and everything else that goes with just your activities of daily living. So sometimes folks do have insurance, but they just don't have the money to pay for that, the co-pays that they might have in deductibles. Let's see here. We have applied for other grants as well. We have received a couple so far from HealthNet. We've also received, we've applied for a couple that are more local, so we'll see how we do with that. I know a lot of you are with service organizations in the county. It's a really great opportunity just to provide what your organization maybe focuses on, whether that's meals for the volunteers so that we don't have to pay for that. That could be covered. If you wanted to donate the money so that the meals could be provided there, that's something that California Care Force has a staff that's helping us navigate this. They've put on a lot of these, and so we're really leaning on their expertise to help us figure this out. So if I wanted to see if you have any questions. I had mentioned to Mr. Eiley that if there was unspent COVID CARES funding, this would be an excellent place for some of those funds to go. We know that a lot of people did not access services during COVID. Things got behind. We have folks in the county who've, lost jobs. We have the fire that occurred. We have some people who could benefit from these needs, from these services. Another thing, interesting thing is that if they do vision, someone goes and they do see that they would benefit from glasses, oftentimes they're able to make those glasses right then and there, and they will walk away with their pair of glasses, or they will be mailed to them if they're a little bit more complicated that they have to do. But, I went and had my eyes checked and then followed up with my eye doctor and said, would you be interested? And he said he thinks he's gonna sign up for one of the days to assist. So we're, you know, we have to have an ambulance on site, we need to have security, we need to be able to pay the volunteers, but it's a really good opportunity to provide some services to, our community.
Thank you. Supervisor Axe, any questions?
Not at this time. So your request is what exactly now, Nina?
I didn't want to put a dollar amount on it. I thought that perhaps.
I can help.
Okay.
When I was chair, I talked to, CAO Wiley,
Yeah.
and he felt the 15,000 level, we could
Okay.
probably do that with the CARES money.
All right. So that's
And
what we're
I'm not
talking
done
about.
yet.
Supervisor Neto?
I'm not done yet.
Oh, sorry.
The only question I have, we've talked about this at First Five before, but you can't restrict this to just Amador County residents. It's open to anyone, right?
We're only doing advertising in Amador County. I was pretty clear about that with, you know, California Care Forces. We wanted to be able to make sure that, Amador County residents were served first.
But you
And
can't,
we
if
aren't-
someone else shows up.
We can't deny, no, they won't deny. If somebody
Yeah.
came over from you know, our fairgrounds are pretty close to right there at the border of El Dorado. I don't know if somebody might see something and then, you know, access that. So no, I doubt that we'd have a lot of that, but.
Okay, I just don't want
Say
it
that.
being like DMV where we get a bunch of residents from other counties.
Oh, I know
Now
what
that they figured out, it's much easier and quicker up here.
Right.
Well, the one
No,
thing
I understand.
I'll add to that is I'm looking at the website right now, and, year 2022, Nevada County, 613 patients served. Monterey County, 2022, 120. Placer, 211. Coachella, 1,001. So it's kind of all over the place.
Well, and some of the smaller ones were stand-down events, so they were specific to veterans.
Mhm.
So those, I did do some research too, and so those smaller ones tended to be, veteran-specific.
Okay.
But they have to have an appointment to
You,
access services, or can they just come?
you come to the site, and they do a screening to make sure that you are healthy enough to have these services done, and then they, you know, move you through the process. So we have talked with, you know, I'm all about making sure people can get there. So, I have worked with Chris with Senior Services, and he's communicated with Common Ground so that they would be able to provide services to seniors who are unable to drive themselves. So we're looking for opportunities to.
Do we have an idea of how many seniors are gonna wanna come, or
I don't,
does, Chris Carlton?
Throw a dart at the
I mean,
wall.
we did do a, pardon?
Throw a dart at the wall, that's your answer.
It's, I mean, it's hard to tell.
Well,
I have worked with, you know, I have worked with, public health, and we have, and then, before, when First Five had a grant to do oral health services only, and, you know, scheduled vans, and, you know, one van can see, you know, 12 to 20 people in a day, and we rarely had a hard time filling that time up. So people are in need, and, I think this, you know, we need to look at the services that are and aren't available in the county. We know we only have one Medi-Cal dental provider in the county, and that's the MACT clinic. And, you know, typically you can't get an appointment there. They are scheduled. So if you are a family living in, like I was, up in Pioneer area, and you are having to travel to Sacramento, to access services, that's a costly, trip, and you're taking off work, and it's a lot of lost work time and school time.
I think I could be a good opportunity. I have no problem with doing it, because a lot of people are struggling. Like you said, the cost of everything's going out of sight, and there's
It is.
a multitude of reasons. We've thrown a lot of money at the economy, just and so, the price of everything just, money flows a lot faster. And you got the air boards put a lot of regulations on everything that's diesel, and your economy kind of runs on diesel, and they're making that very expensive, so it all comes right down the line. Yeah, a lot of people, I think it'd be a good program, especially get the word out and have a lot of people utilize it. And, yeah, especially kids, they need medical care,
And our
vision.
seniors, I'm about 0 to 5, but they have
Them too.
grandparents and, yeah,
Because their retirement accounts probably aren't doing real good right now.
no.
If they have one.
No. If
Anything
they
else,
have one.
Supervisor Neto?
I'm done.
Okay. Well, do I have a motion? Oh, sorry, thank you. Public comment. Does anybody have any public comment? Yes, sir, come on up. Please state your name for the record.
I'm Farrell. I work for George Reed. I'm here for another issue, but I was listening to this, and, I'd invite you to maybe meet with the Reeds and have a discussion with them, and maybe we can find some money for them.
Thank you.
Okay?
That would be appreciated. Okay, any Zoomers?
Not at this time.
Okay. Now can I call for a motion?
I'd like to, make a motion to approve the, funding level, the gold level, $15,000, come out of the, CARES Act money that the county has received to support this California Care Force program that's, providing medical health services.
I'll second that.
Okay, first and second, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that'd be a 4-0-1. Thank you, Nina. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and thank you for checking with your service organizations as well, and if you have information you'd like me to share, happy to do that.
Okay, next item up is 4F, Planning Department, final determination of the board's chair's approval of a temporary waiver to allow Jackson Valley Quarry to operate outside their authorized hours and days of operation during an emergency as allowed by the permit conditions of approval.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Chuck Beatty with the Planning Department. Due to the recent storms, there have been numerous requests for Jackson Valley Quarry to be able to stay open beyond their normal operating hours of 6 to 6 Monday through Friday in order to provide various types of stone and aggregate for multiple storm mitigation projects. Their conditions of approval allow the chair of the Board of Supervisors to issue a waiver of those hours during emergency situations, provided that matter is put in front of the full board for a decision after the fact. And so that's what.
So they already did all of this.
Well, they're doing it.
Yeah.
Well, the dates have already come and gone, right?
There have been subsequent requests after the initial one that past Chair Forrester authorized.
Okay.
And that's not unusual to do it that way, Frank. I mean, it's an
No,
emergency.
I understand. I just,
Okay.
so it's just, this is kind of an ex post facto kind of
Well, not
approval.
really, because yes, we are supporting what was already approved, but we're also supporting the resolution to go through, and what I suggested to Tom when he talked to me was to, go with the state of the, state right now, and especially Northern California, with all of the damage being incurred, that, let this coincide with the governor's proclamation and take it out to the end of January.
Is that part of the resolution now?
I believe the dates coincide with the OES, what we have already approved, with our emergency proclamations, that we have to reapprove every 30 days.
That's correct. It was during the initial request to the quarry, which was December 31st through January 2nd, and then extended through the emergency proclamation that was issued by the Director of Emergency Services and ratified by the board.
So that goes for 30 days beyond?
30 days, and then if we have to go longer from there, that's my question, is once it runs out, would, George Reed have to come back and make an additional request?
I would say that's probably the safe thing to do.
But we could just simply put that request and the approval on consent, when that comes back around.
And it very well may. There's a lot of water out there, and it's tearing stuff up.
And we don't know when these storms are gonna really quit.
And I want to be careful and protect my neighbors who, live close to the quarry, but at the same time, I really agree with Supervisor Neto. I don't think that this is going away in 30 days.
Okay, any comment from the public?
My name's Tom Farrell. I work for George Reed. And first, I would like to thank the county staff. Our first emergency request was for a reclamation district that was repairing levees. It was on December 31st. So it was New Year's Eve, and the county staff went above and beyond to get everything ready to reach out to everybody and get the approval. So I would like to thank the county staff. And now that we have a new chairman, I'll have to put you on speed dial.
Not a problem.
So that I can reach out to you and get these approvals. Yeah, we did ask for for it to be the end of January because it's pouring down right now. It's going to be raining the next 10 days, and these erosion keeps going on, and levees need to be repaired, and we anticipate quite a few of these. And we don't want to have to come in every day and ask for you to do a temporary approval. So that's why we asked for the extended period.
You know, question, Tom, the point of sale of that material, is it gonna be at the quarry in Jackson Valley?
No, it would be at where the project is. So the Reclamation District 800 is the primary, entity that's gonna be doing a lot of this levee repair work. You know, I'm not really sure that.
You should work to get the point of sale in Jackson Valley.
Yeah.
Is that something you work on?
I can look into that, yes,
We'd appreciate that.
definitely.
Well, is that wholesale or is that retail at that point?
I don't know, actually. I'm not
If
sure.
it's wholesale, we don't get anything.
Well, I'm aware of that. That's why I'm asking, have the point of sale in Jackson Valley.
Yeah, I'm not prepared to answer that. I just don't know. Sorry.
Well, maybe, look at the future contracts you do, or maybe talk to some of the people and see if there's a way they can structure it to where it's done in Jackson Valley.
Okay, I will look into that.
And if you could provide some correspondence on that back to the chair, as on the point of sale issue.
Yes.
Because we'd like to be getting, product is coming from Amador County. It'd be nice if we got the, sales tax on.
Yeah. I understand the issue, and I will look into that, see if we can make the point of sale for these emergency work out of the, Jackson Valley Quarry, office. Okay?
How about any of the work? We'll
Well,
deal with that one, okay?
Yeah.
We brought this up before, too.
Yes.
Just one more thing, just item of note for the public. It's interesting, the resolution from Lodi City, declaration of emergency. This is whereas the city initiated a state-funded project to repair this portion of the river in 2019.
Yeah.
However, unprecedented delays in the state permitting process has delayed this project for 2 years, so it hasn't been done. And also it talks about, whereas work can proceed outside the riverbank area at this time, however, the city is still waiting for the State Land Commission approval to allow work to be performed in the riverbank area. Yeah. And I think it's a problem throughout the United States where government is in the way. I understand proper oversight and procedures, but I just want to put out in the record that I think, government's part of the problem.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. As a person, a large part of my job is to get approvals through governments. I understand that completely. So.
Okay, anybody else from the public?
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, anybody off of Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Normally, I would make the motion because it's my district, but I'm not gonna make the motion to approve my own decision that I did as the, temporary waiver.
Well, I was waiting for you, so, and I'll go ahead and make that motion to approve the temporary waivers, allow Jackson Valley Quarry to operate outside the approved day and hours of operation in emergency situation.
And does that includes
For the next 30 days?
Includes the resolution too?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Second.
Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, 401.
Yeah, real quick, before, we take a break, just a quick announcement. We have, Ridge Road has been closed. We had some down power lines. It's gonna be closed until hopefully reopened about 5, thanks to the storm, so,
But, it's not all of Ridge Road.
not all of Ridge Road, sorry. From New York Ridge, New York Ranch to, Hemrick's grade.
Yeah, that's kind of, I saw that this morning when I was coming in, that CHP had set up roadblocks and wasn't letting anybody through.
So we should have that open by the end of the day, though.
Okay. So you can get through New York Ranch to Ridge Road or Upper Ridge Road and, is all open.
Okay, we'll
For now.
take a 10-minute recess. I have 10:35, so 10:45. Thank you. My photograph needs to be promoted now. Supervisor Neto, come on back. We can still continue.
He's MIA. You know, Brian, this will be, you know, you won't be the one that's late. There you go. Uh-oh, he must have been listening.
Likely excuse. Okay. Bring the meeting back to order. 4G, discussion and possible action relative to request from a museum in Hong Kong to borrow items from the Chukey store in display in Hong Kong. The list of the proposed items for loan is attached, as well as the proposed draft agreement. Staff needs to know if the board would entertain such an agreement and whether staff should continue working to develop a more appropriate agreement.
Hello, Teresa Guidi, Records and Volunteer Administrator for Amador County. First of all, I just want to talk a little bit about the archives because I don't get to come here very often. And we want to toot our little horn. So the archives has been it's been a very, very busy year for us. We were very involved with the Argonaut 100 commemoration, which was extremely successful and brought, you know, probably over 100 different families from all over the United States to, you know, to the event. It was very, very successful. Another part of what we do is we do help with a lot of research for people writing books. I've had quite a few TV shows like Discovery Channel, PBS, Ghost Hunters, you know, who we've helped provide information for them for, you know, different programs that they've been working on. So now a little bit about the history of this particular project. I was contacted by one of my volunteers, Elaine Zorbas, who is in the Fiddletown Preservation Society, and she's also a local expert on the Chinese who immigrated to California during the gold rush. And she's written several books on that subject. She's very involved with the Chukey store, and I believe she's on Zoom right now. Anyway, Elaine brought in a couple of professors from Seattle who were working on a book, and this is the book, they sent me a copy, Toomey and Bennett. Anyway, and then I put some tabs if anybody wants to look later on some of the information that we helped provide for them for the books that they were working on. When they came to Amador County, they were very, very excited about what they found here because we have some very unique items that you don't just find, you know, in most, you know, Chinese exhibits. We have these ledger books that were done. They're written in an old Chinese dialect, and they talk about when someone is born in China and they pass away out of the country, they usually set up a fund to have their remains sent back to China. So we have these ledgers that tell who donated, whose body got sent back, you know, when that happened and all of that, and which is kind of important historic information. Plus it kind of tells us who was here and all of that sort of thing. They're written in Chinese. I have never shown them to anyone other than these people who came, you know, doing this research, because even most typical Chinese can't read these because they're in an older dialect. So that is one of the things that they're looking to borrow because they want to do the translations on those, which would be very beneficial to us. And then, okay, so
That was in 2016, early 2016. So by July of 2016, I received an email from Osman Chin, who is with the Hong Kong Museum of History, and they were very excited about coming out. So on July 11th, he and several of his colleagues, one being Sonia Ng, who is Dr. Sonia Ng, who is an expert in the field, and she lives in the United States. Anyway, they came out and they looked at the Chukey store, they looked at what we had in the archives, and that's what brought the idea of doing this, this display or this exhibit in the Hong Kong Museum. Then in November of 2018, Osmond came back and they tagged items that they would be interested in borrowing, and they expressed their interest on, doing this exhibit. Then COVID hit. And so I didn't hear from them for like 5 years. And then all of a sudden in November this year, I get an email, okay, we're ready to do the exhibit. And so then, of course, I can start losing sleep because I'm thinking, I feel a very, very big responsibility for the items in my care. And there's been, changes in Hong Kong, and just the way that the things are in the world, so, but then I decided, okay, I'm going to look at this like I would look at making a big decision in my home. So I'm going to do my list of pros and my list of cons. And so in my list of pros, the Hong Kong Museum is a world-class, Smithsonian level type museum, and they do, loaned exhibits and create exhibits and do this kind of thing all of the time. And even though it's something new for us here in Amador County, it's not something new for them. Also, they plan to do some conservation on the items because those ledgers, for example, are paper and they're 150 years old and they're very brittle and delicate. And so they want to, do some treatments on them to help preserve them. Plus, they want to translate them, which would also be a positive for us because, we don't even know what they say. So, and we didn't even know what they were until then. Let's see. And also the other thing is those items are just locked away in the archives for nobody to see. I feel like it's like the Indiana Jones movie at the end, where they lock away the Ark of the Covenant and nobody sees it. And, it's safe, but, we don't have any access to that history to know what it is. And I think that that's important for Amador County history.
Meaning we don't have top people working on it?
My Chinese is a little weak. Let's see. There's also 13 other entities. Some are private collections and some are larger collections that are going to be contributing to this collection. And that's part of what I just put out to you guys. There's a list of those entities. And I think before we finalize any agreement on whether or not we're going to loan the stuff, I think I want to talk to several of them, just to kind of get a feel of how they feel about this loan. And, the duration is supposed to be 2 years. They'd like to get them by the end of the 2023, so the last quarter of 2023. So that gives us time to put it together. And then if you look up, okay, it's not there now. We have a list of the items with a picture that shows what they're interested in borrowing. So if you want to keep scrolling down just kind of slowly and show, everything is at the archives. In fact, I was going to put it back in the collection because I hadn't heard from them for so long that I was thinking, okay, well, this is probably not even going to happen. Anyway, but it shows the different items that they're interested in borrowing. And then as you get down to the bottom of this list, I believe there's 23 items in all. So as you get to the bottom of the list, they did this really neat kind of graphics that show how they're going to be displayed and where each item is going to be displayed. So this particular picture, they're going to do an actual mock-up of the Chukey store. And the background there is going to be a photograph, which Larry is going to take, that kind of like simulates what it looks like inside the Chukey. And then they want to have some items from the Chukey there to, you know, help with the, you know, the picture of the display. The thing that's interesting about this is, you know, millions of people from all over the world are going to come and see this display, and I just think it's a goodwill thing. It's a and and we will gain from it. I think that we possibly could have some tourism dollars from it and that sort of thing. So, and then I go to the cons list, you know, and my issue on the cons list is, you know, the leadership in Hong Kong has changed, and, you know, what kind of government involvement and what is our security on whether or not the items are going to be returned, you know, and then if there's any costs associated, I want to make sure that none of those costs are borne by the county. And, you know, my kind of feeling is if we insure these things for a large enough dollar amount, then they're not going to want to have to pay that amount, and they're going to make sure that the items come back. You know, that's just kind of my initial.
Will they do that? Will they agree to it?
Well, okay, so I posed several questions to Osman, and the first question was, you know, how much is the government, what role is government going to play? And he said the Hong Kong Museum of History is a public museum, and they fall under the Leisure and Cultural Services Department, which is part of HKSAR government. So I don't know what that means, but he said that their museum is being represented by HKSR and in handling the loan with the archives. And so Hong Kong Museum is the end user, and so it would fall under their, you know, their protection. And let's see, who in Hong Kong, that was the next question, was who in Hong Kong is ultimately responsible for the safety and return of the objects? And they said Hong Kong Museum of History would bear all of the responsibility.
Will they post a bond or anything?
Well, that's what I would like to see us, you know.
Okay.
You know. And it sounds like, you know, they will cover the costs, they'll cover the logistics, they'll hire professional, you know, curators to come, pack the items, you know, get them moved to China, and then vice versa. And they also want to do conservation, so they want to
send it by Federal Express?
Yeah. I want to go brown, right?
Okay. UPS.
Excuse me.
Clarification, it sounds like it's Hong Kong Society for Rehabilitation.
One of the organizations that's going to...
HKSR.
Oh, okay.
That's the only thing I can find.
Autonomous Region is probably what it stands for, I believe, because with the, Larry Ainger, by the way, I'm an ad hoc member of a whole bunch of things here related to history. I've worked with Elaine, I work with Teresa, I work with the Kennedy Mine Museum. I also do curation there and creation of exhibits. I've been pressed into service to at least photo document this. I've created a film for the documentary film this past year for the Chukey Museum and the Fiddletown Preservation Society. So my role is basically to, if needed, because I'm boots on the ground here to take care of some of the photography, documenting some of the exhibits, creating some of it, I understand that I'm going to be doing. So I looked a little bit into the museum. It's out of the TripAdvisor 1,400 places to see in Hong Kong, it's in the top 20 of the #1 museum. It's about 1 3/4 acres in size. There's other museums at the same campus as Hong Kong Science Museum. There's several other museums within walking distance. It's within a few minutes of a major transit hub. It's very close to Kowloon Bay, Kowloon Park. So it's centrally located. It really looks like a great museum, more than 1 million visitors, pre-COVID per year are attracted there, free admission, so it's really seems like a very good site to do some people-to-people exchange here through the lending of our artifacts. However, with the provision that everything is on the up and up, bonded, to make sure that we get it back in any case. Because as we all know, there's been a lot of problems the last few years in Hong Kong with social uprising, to be politically kind about what's happening there.
A lot of instability, yeah.
Yes.
You know, if anything is we're dealing with this is the contract that they gave you as a sample. There's many provisions on this contract that are just outrageous. You know,
Yes,
one of them, if the lender fails to withdraw the item within 30 days of the date of withdrawal specific clause, the government shall be at liberty to dispose of the item.
Yes, and that's where everybody throws out their boilerplate contract, and that's what Sharpies are designed for. You scratch out what you don't like.
I mean, I would like to see, you know, before we make any decision, is a better contract
I agree.
to
I
present
noticed
before
some
us.
of the provisions that were very one-sided, in my opinion, on it, and ultimately, we need to make sure that everything is on the above board and is mutual agreeable to everyone and not one-sided where we're the short end of the stick at the end.
Right, and I didn't want to go down this road any further until I at least had some direction as to, is this a possibility that we're going to do the loan? Or, you know, or it's an absolute no, you know, are we still just going to continue and to entertain it? And, you know.
Teresa, have you contacted any of the other U.S. Locations that are lending artifacts that have been confirmed and asked them what kind of deal that they've structured and what?
No, I just got that list on Thursday.
Okay.
So I figured when Osmond is here tomorrow, I would get names of contacts and say, okay, I want names and phone numbers to talk to people, you know, and just kind of get a feel for. Sonia Ng is going to be one of the loaners, and she's going to be here tomorrow at our meeting at the archives.
Supervisor Forster?
Yeah, my problem is just kind of what some of the items Larry brought up, but we don't have any control over this. Once it goes to Hong Kong, they can keep it forever.
Right.
And we don't have the money to fight them to bring it back, so more than likely we just give up on it. I don't like dealing with a communist country that
And that was, you know, I mean, I've lost sleep.
I don't like dealing with a communist country that has made inroads to trying to take over Hong Kong, trying to take over other areas, whether they figure it's rightfully theirs or not. But this contract is very loose and it's very much in their favor, a lot of the points. Point 6, unless the government is notified in writing to the contrary, it is understood that the items maybe for, well, let's see, item 5, I guess, is unless the government is notified to the contrary, it's up to them basically how long the items will be exhibited to the public. They might just come back at some point and say, well, you said 2 years, but we're just going to keep them now.
Right.
That's why, that's only the starting point. That's why we have to walk softly and pack a big stick back.
And the unfortunate problem is we don't have the big stick.
Yes.
You know, I mean, even if we go to, you know, some type of arbitration, you know, how.
Yes, but bonding is another factor that would be in our favor that.
If they post a bond, then it's held by some kind of third person or, you know, someone outside of, you know, China proper.
Yes.
And,
I would agree on that.
then we could at least collect that if they default. Now, they could maybe make a claim, well, you gave it to us, so, you know. Anyhow, I don't know.
There's another possibility too, is they might just accept for some of these just good quality photographs. We have that option too, at least at this point, because nothing's been set in stone.
Right.
I like the idea of them being able to restore items, but on the other hand, I weigh that against, would we ever get these items back?
That's probably a question I probably would, but the agreements got problems. I think they need to be corrected, and you brought up some of them, and there's one also, it talks about grants, an exclusive or a non-exclusive, license to the government to use basically a copyright them. So that maybe they could say, well, you can no longer use that in a book, possibly, so it has to be non-exclusive. So
Right.
Somebody wanted to use
Right.
it.
So I think that, this was just their boilerplate, loan agreement, and I think we need to go through it and make sure that we, modify it.
I think you'd have to contact some of our own Smithsonians to
Right.
what type of agreement they run with or anything else, but
And bring lots of Sharpies.
yeah. I wouldn't worry Sharpie, I just don't want their contract,
Yes.
Right.
but it's still,
And I agree with Richard, I've got my doubts about, or some qualms about the communist country, but if you look at how much stuff are in our stores, I think that boat has flown a long time ago. Not that it should have.
The other point is, this stuff has been sitting where nobody can see it. So, would we be losing a lot? We might feel like it, but this stuff has been sitting in storerooms and, nobody's been seeing it.
Right, well, and like the ledgers, for example, which to me is the most valuable, we can't even read them because unless we find somebody who can read that particular dialect of Chinese, we can't translate them. So, I don't know. Like I said, I've lost lots of sleep over this, thinking, and then I was kind of sort of relieved in a way because I thought they had actually just kind of gone away because I didn't hear from them for 5 years, and then boom, it came back, and then I was like, oh, no, I'm not going to sleep again.
I think it's worth investigating further and finding out what some of these other organizations are doing.
Yeah.
To assure that there's some kind of protection, that the items will be returned. We can definitely benefit by having it translated and really understand what it means, and that would benefit the Chukey store. But there is the concern that something could get damaged or lost or not.
I'm less worried about things getting damaged or lost because these people are, they're at the top of their field and, in artifact restoration and, and preservation. It's more, my issue is more the, will it come back?
Yeah, and that's something to maybe bring up with the California Historical Society and some of these other other entities that you've listed here.
County Council, any thoughts on all this we're talking?
Well, I think the starting point would be to just not use their agreement and find a sample of an outgoing loan agreement from a reputable museum when there's plenty of examples online, and use that as our template. I guess there's two things. There's insurance, and then there's bonds, and they're separate. And so if you want a bond, or if you want to at least talk about it, or maybe we'll see what the other entities are doing. Because my guess is that an insurance policy is going to exclude their absolute failure of the Chinese government to give it back. It's not going to be covered by the insurance.
That's the way we need to have a bond also.
Yeah.
One, to ensure the safe transit and loss damage, and the other to ensure that the artifact does come back to us.
Yeah. And the only problem with the bond or even the insurance is, what is the value? Do we know what the value is? Do we need some sort of an appraisal?
No, it's a valuation that's assessed by the Hong Kong Museum of History. That's what their agreement is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did try to run some of these characters through Google Translate. It does, the English version does sort of match, but it's not a good agreement for the loan.
It says in the agreement that the English version takes precedence over the Chinese version, but it's only good as the piece of paper.
But you're studying your Mandarin now?
I'm limited because Google Translate only does like so many characters at a time. It takes a while.
Agreement's interesting, but you're right, it's all in their favor. I mean,
Yes.
the one side here, they talk about the insurance excludes confiscation by order of any government or public authority.
That's pretty standard language, and you're probably not gonna get insurance that would insure that. Right.
And that's where the bond would
Yeah.
probably come in.
Right. And then I guess that's the issue is if we decide to ask for a bond, what's the value? What's the amount?
Well, I guess I'm looking for right now is a direction to either continue looking at this or just stop it.
I think it'd be really nice to have, the stuff basically, have them go in there and look at the language and figure out what it says.
Right. I know Elaine is on Zoom, and I imagine that she would like to say a few words as well. Would that be appropriate now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, that's my.
Translate it would be nice.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. As mentioned, my name is Elaine Zorbas, and I've been a long time volunteer with the archives and a longtime member of the Fiddletown Preservation Society and a docent at the Chukey store. And I've handled all of the items that are up for possible loan. 11 of them are actually in the Chukey store right now. So it's with both enthusiasm and sorry to see them go, feelings about lending them. First of all, I wanted to find out, did you get the letter from the Fiddletown Preservation Society?
Yes, we did.
You should have it in front of you, and I can read part of it if you like.
Well, we have it. We've had it, printed out, and it's in our packet.
Okay. A few things at the Chukey Store Museum. We try to educate visitors about the Chinese who settled in Fiddletown. This exhibit, however, is dealing at an even larger scale. It's dealing with the Chinese experience in California, which was very critical both to the development of the state and to China itself, especially Hong Kong, because most of these immigrants came through Hong Kong. This is a chance for us to put Fiddletown and Amador County on the world stage and educate people at that end in Hong Kong about how Chinese immigrants adapted to our country. Since 2013, I have worked with Dr. Sonia Ng. She's a historian, a translator. She worked for the State Department in translation, and she plays a very important role in this whole process because she lives in the Bay Area, but goes back and forth between here and Hong Kong. And she was the first person who actually saw many of the documents at the archive and was extremely excited at some rare things that had never before been seen, especially from a gold mining town, telling the story from the point of view of the gold rush. So she's the one that's kind of facilitated all of the contacts with other organizations and institutions for the loan. And she is also the guest curator of the exhibit. She lives in Concord, so she's in the Bay Area, and she has written a book that's going to go with the exhibit. The Chukey store will have its own part of the exhibit. It's going to be really an important part. It's going to be life in a Chinese grocery store. And it's also going to be in the book that she's going to publish that goes with the exhibit. She's passionate about Chinese American history, and she's worked with the also the city of Hanford, actually the Hanford Preservation Society. It's near Fresno, and they're loaning many, many more items than we will. And she has helped catalog and identify those items. She would not want to lend them if she knew they were not coming back. So I feel we have a very responsible person who's going to be an ally in this whole process. So it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for Amador County to reach out into the world And if we draft a contract that's acceptable to both parties, that certainly is important. It's a chance to share goodwill, people to people, between them, people in China, all of the visitors. I've been to that museum. It's a wonderful museum, very large and very interesting. So it's a chance to build trust between people while the politicians argue, but it's not a political exchange. This is a cultural exchange. So I hope you'll want to go ahead and explore how we can proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Any other Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay, bring it back to the board. Supervisor Forster?
I don't mind looking at this. We can make the contract as hard and fast as possible by our county council, but to be realistic, we have to be prepared to lose these items.
Agreed.
So on one hand, I have a lot of trepidation about dealing with a country like China. That's a communist entity that basically they can throw a monkey wrench in anything. But on the other hand, who's ever seen these items in the last, since they've been put in the museum?
Teresa.
So an opportunity to get them cleaned up. I got a little bit of history with this. We had a saddle in our family that was a parade saddle inlaid with silver that sat in my grandmother's rafters in her garage. My great-great-grandfather saddle, and the Smithsonian called her one day and wanted to borrow it for the exhibition of man-made mobile in 1976. She hung up on him because she thought it was a joke. And they persisted, and we finally ended up lending the saddle. They cleaned it up. It was in the Smithsonian for 2 years, and then it sat in my dad's house for about 20 years until he finally said, I can't split it 6 ways, so he donated it to Mission in San Juan Capistrano.
That's the one I see down there when I visit then, apparently.
Yeah, so it really doesn't do a lot of good for these artifacts to sit there and never be seen.
Yes, the term is called dog in a manger. You have them, you can't read them, you can't enjoy them, but you won't let anyone else. It's always a two-edged sword, unfortunately.
That's right. It's like that stuff we have in our drawers at home that nobody else sees that's valuable.
Correct.
Or it's valuable to us.
However, we're dealing with an 800-kilogram gorilla on the other side too.
That's right.
Quite possibly.
That's the catch-22.
Always a catch-22, but sometimes in the overall scheme of things, we're a very small player here too, and thinking pragmatically, why would they hang on to them other than they were something made in America by a Chinese person? So.
Yeah, I'll say this, if it was the first foot in the door, I'd say no. But you look at the trade, there's a lot of stuff going back and forth. It's not like we're giving a stamp for approval to the Communist Party. With that said, I think it'd be having the items go there. I'm in favor of it. Proper documentation. Probably wouldn't hurt to take copies or photos of the items before they leave.
Right, well, my thought was I'd like to have Larry go and just take extensive pictures from different angles, you know,
in the
of each item.
books, all the pages, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that we have at least a digital version that represents what we're lending out, or even what we're potentially lending out. It's just, once you have it digitized and scattered around, it's cheap insurance.
Yeah, so.
I'd also, in any contract, I'd like us to get, to be provided with any interpretation of what the language actually means there, so we can have it in our archives, and any pictures, reproductions or anything that they do for the exhibit, and a trip to Hong Kong to view the exhibit, or the past chair.
There you go, there you go.
I'll scratch that last one maybe, so.
What it seemed to have.
I was waiting for that.
You can get cheap airfare out of San Francisco to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, my feeling is this is just, do you want us to proceed? This
understand.
decision, this is no final decision at all.
Correct.
It's just simply, direction on proceed or not.
Well, and I imagine, Greg, that the other lenders, there's gotta be some that have templates out there that we could refer to.
I'm sure, and there's, I mean, I've found a pretty good one. It's on the American History Museum outgoing loan agreement, and it's online. It's probably got some stuff we don't need, but it is looks pretty comprehensive.
Supervisor Forster, we can get you a one-way ticket.
Just thumb it back. My wife might appreciate that, so.
Well, will they let him in?
Yeah. Supervisor Axe, your favor or against the continuing this?
I think we should look into it. We should ask, I mean, this is a pretty comprehensive list of, other donors and find out, what they're donating, what they're doing, what their thoughts are, you know, concerns, and, just bring it back and, you know, let's hear from it. The fact that the contract, if the English version is the one that is, interpreted, then we can make sure that the contract is to our liking and, you know, just what assurances that we can have that it'll get back. But I think it still is a positive thing that they want people to see it and that they can help us with, you know, explaining and interpreting its meaning so that we know what it means. We could actually use that.
Right.
So.
Forster, Supervisor
Yep,
Forster?
I'm agreeable with looking at it. Probably just a timing issue, but there's only two that are still pending, Amador County and the California Historical Society. So I'd like to find out if they're going to consent to this too.
Supervisor Netter, you were in favor of the continuing of it, correct?
Yep.
Well, you have direction.
Great. Right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa, Larry.
Okay.
Okay, next item, 4H. Discussion and possible action relative to hiring a state lobbyist to further the county's need at the state level. The anticipated cost would be approximately $50,000 per year, less than the remaining of the fiscal year. The actual cost would not be known until a contract is negotiated.
Well, Supervisor, I've been talking about this with Supervisor Oneto, and we've increased our grant writing ability. We now have a almost full-time grant writer on staff. We have grant writers under contract. Really, the last piece missing to making sure that we're getting our representation and our fair share of funds is to get a lobbyist to get into Sacramento and fight on our behalf. So the question is whether or not the board wants to do that. It's not free. There is cost to it. Right now we're estimating about $50 a year. Obviously, if we went and got somebody right about now, it wouldn't cost us the whole $50 for the partial year, but that's about how much we'd be looking at for a year. Most other counties do this. It is something that we are at a disadvantage not having a lobbyist.
Do we have a list of what we want them
Well,
to do?
that was something that we would want to put together when we direct. If we get a lobbyist, we'd say we need to focus on this. Obviously, job one in this county is roads. We need transportation funding. And that's what I believe is first and foremost, and that's what I think the board would say. But there are a lot of other things potentially at risk.
Is there any reason to believe that they can help us get more funding?
Well, there's money coming through from the feds for the transportation and all of that's going to be distributed by the state. Nothing's going to come straight from the feds. It's going to go through the state. So having someone there who can, either A, identify it for us so that we can go get it ourselves, or B, help us get it, is really what will, be key to the success there. There is so much money coming that that's one of the things that's kind of flipped me on this recommendation.
Well, is it a lobbyist that's really gonna help us, or is it the grant writers that are really gonna help us?
I think it's a combination of both.
I think so.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's why we've got both on on our side now, or trying to be. So a good example is, last year we talked about combining the tax collector and the auditor's offices, and it was something that needed to be done. It was very simple legislation to get done. Just one line had to be added to code. We asked our legislative delegation to see that it got done, and it didn't get done. They just didn't get it done. And when it came time to get it done, they gave us 2 hours to approve their language, and in the end, we approved it, and they still didn't get it done. They just said it's not important, and they chose not to do it. And those were, there was really no reason for that, but a lobbyist is going to sit there and pound on their door until they put it into a bill. That was very disappointing to me, because these are all people that I would expect would be on our side, and we don't ask for a lot, but they didn't get it done.
Supervisor Forster?
I guess I could live with this for a year, but, when we've got lobbyists in the past, we had David French on the federal level, that was related to Indian gaming. We had, I think the other gentleman was on the ERAF issue, David?
Dave, what was it?
Dave Jones?
Yes, Dave Jones.
Dave Jones on that specific issue. What's gonna hurt us on the transportation side is we're not a self-help county. So it might make it hard to get any money. I guess it's a lot of money to roll out there for a year, but if we don't get any productivity out at it, I don't want to continue it after that. We've been very specific and focused on our lobbying efforts in the past. We're a small county. Yes, most counties have them, but most counties are bigger counties too.
No, I agree generally what you said, Richard, but one reason why I've kind of brought this question up is I think there's going to be a whole lot of money floating around out there, probably a lot. And I think that it might be an opportunity to get a fair chunk for Amador County. And I'm with you. If it doesn't work out and we don't get much benefit out of it, we're done with it.
Why do you think there'll be a lot of money on the transportation area specifically?
Yeah.
Where, from the feds?
From the feds.
Yeah, the bill that they passed, the infrastructure bill.
We can try it for a year, but I gotta tell you, I wanna see results. If I don't see results, we can't afford to keep a lobbyist on. And the other thing is, where did this lobbyist come from? I've never heard
that was one question that I put in there, is how we want to proceed. We met with one the other day. I certainly don't think that's the end all be all of the interview process. I think we should interview more. And
how do we identify them?
That's a good question. We'll have to dig into that. I can make some calls, find out who's using who, and with what success.
Yeah, because
the only thing I could add to that is the one that Supervisor Neto and I talked to, he was a local gentleman. And so it may be an asset to have somebody locally trying to help, our local county. And he has other clients, we're not just.
I'd like to see what kind of results he's provided to
I understand.
those clients. I mean, if you're gonna give somebody a job, I'd kind of like to see what have they produced for counties in the past. Whether it's him or other counties, if they can provide lobbyists and say, this guy, this person, or this firm, this gal is great.
And that's what we're talking about, is just to bring it back at a later date but we just want to see do we want to put this foot in the door? It's the first step of it.
I think timing might be important too. I mean, do we want to really bring them on board right now or later on in the year when the funding from the infrastructure bill is actually going to start being rolled out. I don't even know what the state's plan is. I've tried to find out because I think that would be something we would want to tap into, so.
Well, I would say that now's the time we want to get the foot in the door to talk to, and have the lobbyists talk to everybody else before it hits.
Yeah, before we put them on the job.
But it's also to start talking to our legislators to think about us, getting that portion of it put into their minds.
And one thing I wouldn't mind having maybe work on is possibly, the Shenandoah Road, and Cal OES kind of roughed that road up pretty hard. And maybe it's possible he mentioned maybe run a bill, maybe get nowhere, but it brings some attention to that, because Cal OES has been very unresponsive, for lack of a better term. And they did, and I think their efforts to clean up Grizzly Flat, which I commend, they had no problem them doing that, but they roughed up Shenandoah Road pretty hard. And they should put some funds back towards repairing that road.
Reimbursement though, and Shenandoah Road's scheduled for paving in about May, June start time.
Well, I know, but that's one reason why is their work tore up that road. And yeah, so the county's footing that bill, but I think they should reimburse us a part of that bill.
So, do we have any public comment on this? Anybody on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay, bring it back for a motion.
We know it should be maybe,
Direction.
I think maybe direction, I was thinking, yeah.
Excuse me.
And to Mr. Hiley to make contact with some other small counties and see if there's other lobbyist names out there. Whether you already kind of got an ad hoc committee who's interviewed this individual, but I mean, there might be other individuals too. Yeah, I like that he came from our county, but I'd like to get some kind of background on him. What is?
Yeah, we're not set in stone, Richard. It's just somebody that kind of thought, hey, this is something we probably ought to do. Talk to him, talk to Chuck, and let's put it before the board and see what the board thinks, and so that's why we're here.
Who does he represent now?
The Rincon tribe, like that'd be what, Thunder Valley. He does a lot of work with the Indian casino people.
Then there was like three others that.
Yeah, I need more background on him and others also before we can make a decision.
Well, the question here is just, do we want to go forward with it? And,
potentially.
Potentially
I
go
think
forward.
we should investigate it, and maybe, do they have resumes that they?
That should be part of it,
Yeah,
Look
absolutely.
at it, at least the other board members can view it too, so.
To do we can put out a full bore RFP and, have to see who responds, but I would say, I don't even think we're ready for that step yet until I get the answer on the effectiveness of.
I'm not sure if I'd want to go out in a formal RFP because our pool is going to be fairly small, those that can represent. Sure, you can have big firms out there representing our county. They're going to charge an arm and a leg, and I think our pool is going to be fairly small to consider.
Okay. Right now, we're talking about direction of staff as to whether to proceed and how the board would like to select a lobbyist if desired.
Do we want to do this and bring it back to admin, or bring it to the full board, or where?
Take it to admin first.
But do we?
Yeah, probably admin work, but at some point it has to go to the full board,
So as the board is willing to go right now, if we select somebody, would you approve $50,000? Supervisor Neto is looking for direction. Well, it's just, I'm trying to figure out if we want to even spend that.
We don't need to budget it right now, just to understand that that's what the cost will be roughly down the road.
Okay.
Do we have $50,000 that we can spend?
I think we can find it in next year's budget.
Okay, so
the
direction of staff is to bring it back to admin after we put a selection committee together.
our selection?
And do have CAO vet out with, other counties.
Okay.
There's other lobbyists that they've been happy with.
CAO did a vet out and then bring it to the admin. Okay.
Maybe, check out El Dorado.
Is everybody in favor of that?
Yep.
Okay. Next item, 4I. Approval to put Buena Vista landfill project out to bid utilizing the state revolving loan fund, or SRF financing. You fell asleep back there a couple times, I saw.
I did. I didn't know, lending stuff to the Chinese government and getting a lobbyist could be so lengthy.
That's it.
Those are hard decisions compared to this one. Well, we're 2 years out now from when I finally got the plans to the state board in the middle of COVID, and they actually forced us to do improvements or upgrade our WDRs and MRPs, which were completed last April, almost a year ago, and then after continuously pushing them for 8 more months, I finally got the executive director and their staff to approve our final design. And we got a letter on December 20th saying that we were okay to move forward from a design and permitting standpoint. That being said, I'm still working with the state revolving fund people. We have gotten everything to them 3 times over as well. And our financing rate went from 0.8% a little over a year ago up to 2.6% where it stands now. And they claim that it's not going to go any higher. And that when we get the contract with them, which they have semi-assured me we should probably get within the next 30 days, county council should get that, that our rate will remain at 2.6%.
That made a big change dollar-wise, from the 0.8 to 2.6.
Yeah, that bumped our financing cost up about 50% a year almost.
Yeah.
I think it was 70 or 80 or 90,000, and now our annual rate's going to be our payment's going to be about 154,000 a year.
State of California is really pathetic with their timelines that are costing counties nothing but money. And cities.
And I guess at the water board level, their financing arm, the state revolving fund, is the holdup there as well. I guess they've been holding people up since COVID started.
And on the jail, we have 2 other state entities that are holding us up.
Yeah, so
crazy.
We are ready to move forward, though. We still are beating the USDA program rate by 1.15%, so we're still saving money. They did give us the option to not do the match, which we have elected to do. So our total payment, our total cost is about in attachment 2 is about $3,174,406. Over the 30-year payment schedule, that'll be about $4.6 million. We have money in the Waste Management Capital Improvement Fund, which has already been designated for this debt service. We're collecting significantly more than $153,000 a year, so there's not going to be an issue with whether or not we can afford the payments. We do have the money coming in. That money, as the garbage rate increases continue over time, that money is factored on a percentage of the rate, so our amount will continue to go up along with those garbage rate increases as well. So we will never be in a position where we won't have the money because we already have enough money in there to make those payments. That's about it. So we anticipate, if you elect to move forward with this, and the plans and specs were on the consent calendar today, that we will get the bid package put together and back to you guys within 30 days. And that'll give us plenty of time to get this stuff out and get some good bids in and get the project going sometime around June or July this year.
Good.
Yeah, it's great. You've been working on this for a while, so.
You know, Jeff, it looks like it's really, basically it's just an expansion of the wastewater holding facility or the runoff
Yeah, the
leachates.
essentially climate change has ended that 100-year storm, and the fact that we allowed a lot of water to get into that waste unit. They decided that our capacity, our handling capacity was not high enough, so they requested a new water balance. And when we did the water balance, it essentially is doubling the size of that Class 2 surface impoundment.
That's pretty common for most,
Yeah, I think so.
most everybody now, is they're gone from 100%, from 100-year storm to 200-year storm.
Yeah, and they call it a 1,000-year event now too. And
Okay.
I was just reading something on the paper yesterday. For every 1 degree in increase in temperature, storms hold 7% more water as well. So we're seeing, we've been lucky. This past couple of weeks, we've only gotten about 6 or 7 inches out there. Some places are getting 10 inches of storm. Placerville, Pollock Pines, everywhere south of us yesterday.
That was my next question. I was gonna ask how we're doing down there.
We're doing good. We still have over 4 feet of freeboard in there. So I have Bob Foy took our manual for our new machine. So he's studying. We're gonna get that thing as soon as we get a little break in the weather. We're gonna get the power hooked up on that, and we're gonna get that out in the pond and actually begin to evaporate water pretty soon. There's still only about this much water in the pond, which isn't enough really for that evaporator. That thing sits on the bottom of the pond, so we really need about 3 feet of water in there. So I'm anticipating this next round of storms, which is probably gonna go up another 6 to 8 inches, so we'll probably get enough water in there to start firing that thing up and see how it works.
So if for every degree you're getting, what, 7% or 17% more?
7% more water.
Why is the whole western United States in a drought?
Yeah. Well, you have to get the storm tracks first, which we're getting this year.
Yeah.
I mean, what we haven't gotten the last few years is that the storm track is, I mean, it used to be that storm track. I'm not sure we got those atmospheric rivers, but in the 60s and 70s, we used to get the continual storm track coming through here, where you get that big low in the Gulf of Alaska, and it would just pump them through here. Now I think that big low is even bigger, so it's pulling that water all the way from the tropics all the way up over to us, so we're getting a lot more water now.
Yeah, you talk about the time lapse here. I'd like our CAO to start keeping track of the project, of this project, and actually put it on paper, how much it's cost us because of the delay of the state. So we can show that to our state legislators, like when we met with Megan Daly recently. But every time we meet with our state legislators, we should provide them the documentation to show what these delays caused from the state agencies
We can also show it to this,
Lobbyists.
lobbyist.
Well,
Tangible.
lobbyists, yeah, but we meet with our state legislators too, and we can, CSAC and RCRC should be aware of this. But every county's gotta start putting these things down on paper so that our state legislators and lobbyists can realize what it's costing our taxpayers.
What's a pile?
Double the cost for us.
I mean, I think it goes back as cost to government and also cost to individuals and people trying to do business. Yeah, and ultimately it trickles down to the average homeowner.
Okay, any other questions for Jeff? Okay, any Zoom comments?
Not at this time.
I'm ready for a motion, give your motion.
Yes, please, bring a motion forward.
I would move approving putting the Buena Vista landfill projects out to bid with the current engineer's estimate and commitment for funding from the state revolving fund.
Second.
Okay, calling for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All against? So 4-0-1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing I was gonna get up and say during your lobbying thing was when we did the roundabout over in Plymouth, we did use a lobbyist at the time, his name was Len, and I can't think of what his last name is, but he worked for the city of Citrus Heights, and Hillary was working with us back then. And he did help us get an earmark. I know, the current House is saying that they want to put a lid on the earmarks, but earmarks do still happen. And so what's jump-started our roundabout project was a $800,000 earmark, which was directly related to the lobbyist putting pressure on I can't remember who
I want to provide that name
congressman
for
was back
Chuck
then.
once you remember it, but Dave Jones, if he's still working, I don't know if he's retired now or not. He was effective on ERAF.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, next item is 4J, 2023 committee assignments. Discussion of possible action relative to the 2023 committee assignments for the Board of Supervisors. So I put this out to everyone and played a little musical jobs here and there, but for the most part, everything stayed the same, except that I added one committee, the Green Energy Committee, for Supervisor Axe and myself. Mainly in my mind, it came up for the battery project. I was supposedly going up to the Pine Grove. One of my thoughts on it is now that I educated myself on it a little bit more, I wish I had approved it, is to the fact that we have 104 of those small Tesla walls around the county already in the same aspect. So these are already in the county that were not being monitored. At least that battery project would have been monitored. But that's neither here nor there right now.
Well, what I was thinking, it would be good to hear from some kind of industry expert on the safety, the viability, the future, you know, to educate the board and our planning commission too, because, you know, this is all new material, and if you have to rely on Google, and the internet for your research, sometimes, you know, you read articles that, make you, you know, worry about approving something like that, and I think that's probably what happened. So it was probably the safe thing at the time, but let's educate ourselves. And there's going to be other projects, because apparently hydrogen could be a very big thing in the near future, and what are the implications there? We all are aware of the Hindenburg, so.
Supervisor Neto?
No, you know, I have no problem with green energy. If it works and makes sense, I have no problem with that.
Supervisor Forster?
Happy as a clam.
Okay, any public comment?
Mr. Chairman, I got a question for you on the McCollum River Association and Upper McCollum Watershed Association. Do those still meet?
UMRA, I think,
No, not UMRA. Those are different than UMRA.
The McCollum River Watershed Association hasn't met in quite a while.
Should we take those off, or?
You probably could. I mean, if they wanted to meet again, we could probably put something like it's been a substantial amount of time. So.
They be added to the, combined with the Upper McCollum River Watershed?
They're different.
Well, those two, they're listed as one assignment on the list.
Well, I cleaned up a couple other things on there. If they're not meeting, let's get rid of it.
Yeah,
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Well, let's redline that one. Any others anybody suggestions? Okay. Do I have we did Zoom, do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve it with that one change.
Second.
Okay.
The committee assignments.
Bring it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any against? Okay, 401. Now we're up to item 4K, minutes, review and possible approval of December 20th Board of Supervisor meeting minutes and the January 4th, 2023 Board Supervisor special meeting minutes. I would, are any?
Make a motion to approve. Did you have any changes?
Second. I didn't have any changes.
Okay. Supervisor Axe, motion with a second by Supervisor Forrester. Call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye. 4-0, any against? Okay, 401. And this will conclude my first Board of Supervisor meeting. Woo-hoo!
Can we record that so we could use that as your phone ring?
Yeah, there you go.